Greetings, Earthbound travelers. Welcome to today's episode of Cast Guidance. I'm Tier the DM, the world's okayest DM. And with me, as always, is the unruly one, Loch Clark. Hey, Loch.
Hi, everybody.
And Raff the Mad. Hi, Raff.
Greetings. How you doing?
Oh, it is Friday. That means it's time to talk rules, minutia, and cast tangents here on Cast Guidance. But before we get started on the tangent goodness, we have some announcements to make. First and foremost, we are for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Secondly, we are in no way, shape, form affiliated, associated with any TTRPG creators, manufacturers, or publishers. We're just three individuals giving our questionable opinion. Next, good news, guys. We're on podcast now.
Woo-hoo!
That's right. Starting with last episode, season 2, episode 1. This makes this season 2, episode 2. We are on wherever you get your, partially wherever you get. I'm still setting up for everybody, but we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Cool. So you can get your cast guidance goodness on the go on podcasts. That being said, I'll kick it over to Loch so he can dice baby us.
Hi, gamers. I'm Loch Clark, and I'm here to talk to you about our partners in this endeavor, Level Up Dice. Find purveyors of luxury dice for all your sexy dice needs. And I learned something magical this week. I learned that Level Up Dice has food grade. Those words into consideration. Food grade stainless steel dice. Do you know what that means? That means you can take your dice and you can put them in your freezer for a while and get the metal nice and cold. And then you can put your dice in your glass and you can pour your scotch or your whiskey, your bourbon, whatever your favorite smoky, peaty beverage is. You pour that over those nice dice and they act as whiskey rocks to chill your drink. And then when you're done drinking it, you can just roll all your dice because they're still dice and they still roll. Can you imagine anything better than that? I can't. Okay, I can. There are a couple of things, but I mean, there are waivers that have to be signed to do those things, and I'd have to get lots of consent. Anyway, moving on. But still, Whiskey Stone stainless steel dice. So to get to those dice, you're going to go through our portal because it makes us look good and you want us to look good. That portal is https://bit.ly/L, Will of the Dice, all one word. That's bit.ly/LUD, Will of the Dice. Go and check those out.
Awesome.
Cool.
Also, just want to remind people that we at Will of the Dice do not promote the use of nicotine products such as cigarettes, cigars, or vape. Just because we do it doesn't mean we want you to. We want you to be happy and healthy. So if you're trying to quit, we support you. There are resources out there. On the other hand, because we do know that some of you are adults, if you're an adult and you use nicotine, that's on you. We're just not promoting. We're not saying it's good to do.
Everything he just said, and switch nicotine for alcohol because I just advertised Whiskey Stone. Let's do that too. All right.
Right. On an entirely separate note, are you on Patreon? You need to be on our Patreon. If you join our Patreon, you get access to our episodes before everyone else. You get access to polls that help drive how the world of Ruth Kesher works. You even get access to After the Roll, where we interview the cast members after the episode to find out how they feel about the fuckery that a certain DM that we all love has done to them. So, yes, please get on our Patreon, Will of the Dice. We very much appreciate it. It's how we keep this channel going. Thank you.
All right. I believe that's all of our announcements. Yeah.
I have can I start with a tangent? Can I just cast a tangent right now?
Cast tangent.
That was quick.
5
seconds in.
Sorry. No, it was something that was said. Tier was very excited that it was Friday. And my brain said, thank God it's Friday, like people often do. And then I thought, which God? So I think we should have a discussion right now on this podcast /stream and decide which God we should thank for it being Friday in D&D's pantheons. And then then we can say at the start of the show every week, thank Vecna, it's Friday, or who the fuck ever we choose. That's what I'm saying. So this is why I'm casting Tangent now, because I want this to be a thing that we start the show with all the time. Thank Eliestre, it's Friday. So chat, please throw your suggestions for gods that it would be right to thank that it's Friday, or really wrong to thank that it's Friday, because we'll go either way on this as far as I'm concerned.
Now I'm like, all right, what domains would Friday fall under? Oh, yes, it's been a week.
I'm just going to throw this in there. Thank Garth Dokeen's sacred taint that it's Friday.
I wrote that line, so yeah, I'm good with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story here, and allow me.
There is a story here.
It's story time with Uncle Peter.
Uh-oh.
So back in early 2020, when the pandemic started, I started a game known affectionately as the Quarantine Game. There was 12, 13 people playing. It was a lot of people. But it was to help combat the depression and the solitude, the isolation of being quarantined. Well, Loch played a character named Dar, who was a follower of Garth Dokeen, who is the god of the glorious death.
Well, he was a fighter, by the way, just so he wasn't a cleric or anything. He was just a fighter who followed a death god.
So part of the history that was created, because I allow my characters to help create history and help create the world, is that Darth Dokeen took a wound on his ass cheek, and ever since then, the followers of Garth Dokeen would give praise to a part of Garth Dokeen, but would always get it wrong. So it would be, praise Garth Dokeen's ass cheek, or praise his taint, or whatever. It was hilarious.
So I'd been reading a book at the time, and I'm trying to remember which book it was. I feel like it was either Brent Weeks or Scott Lynch, and I don't know which. But there was a soldier. There were characters were soldiers in the book, and they were, like they would reference things that were supposed to be sacred, but always sort of perversely, and it almost was a game as to who could go the furthest. And so I was like, I want my guy as a soldier. He was my first. I created a lot of details about the Iron Sage military because I played this soldier character who came from the Iron Sage. So I wrote the military structure for the Iron Sage, and Tyr gave us a death god, and I was like, yeah, these soldiers would follow that death god. And so praising the wound that he survived that was sort of inconsequential, but so it was sort of a way to say, that's not that bad. Yeah, you gotta have a scar on your ass. It's not that bad. So it was praise Garth Dokeen's scarred left ass cheek was how it started as soldier colloquialism. But then, like soldiers do, it grew and it changed into other things. And so, Garth Dokeen's sacred taint became an emphatic that some people say sometimes. And that's it was. I had a list. I had a list of body parts that I kept next to me when I played, just so I could glance over at the list, and whichever one caught my eye first was the next one that I threw out.
Yeah, you're on a list, all right.
And then they started becoming situationally appropriate. Like, which one of these fits this situation the best?
Speaking of inappropriate.
Moving on. So today we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We've talked about Session 0 a lot, but we've never gone in depth with it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do some in-depth dive. This may be a multiple part series. It all depends on basically how my back holds out, because it is a bad pain day. But we're going to be talking.
We cast along the way.
Yes, and how many tangents we cast along the way. We're going to be talking about session zeros. We are going to be talking about RP workshops, and we're going to be talking about first sessions. And all of this is Raff going to be talking, and me and Locke are going to be nodding sagely and looking intrigued. So,
Wait a second. Wait a second. Oh, look, there's a bus coming for me. I see it right there. No, but in all seriousness, session 0 is highly important. I set it up for my most recent campaign. I'm still running in 5th ed. Session 0, it's where you set the rules, the boundaries for your campaign, for your game, so that you don't make players uncomfortable and you don't get uncomfortable with some of the subject matter that comes up. It also allows you to set the rules of the table. We're rolling all rolls publicly, only the DM is allowed to cheat, stuff like that. You set the expectations ahead of time before you sit down on the table, start playing, so that everyone understands what's going to happen, and there's no surprises for anybody. But I cannot emphasize footstop more how important session 0 is. And then from there, RP workshops. I think depends on what you're doing for a campaign and a story, but it also depends on what you're doing for what we're doing here on Will of the Dice. It makes sense to help us develop the voices for our characters, help us to get the characterization down for our characters. But for you, the average player out to have fun, that's up to you. If you like doing that stuff, great. If not, that's fine too. And then, of course,
I'm going to say this. So, I believe RP workshops benefit even the average at-home player. Here's why.
Okay.
You're allowing the players. You're doing this before you start your first session, guys.
Mm-hmm.
What it is you bring your players together to RP situations, and they don't have to be serious situations. Like the last one I did, they were going grocery shopping and couldn't find vanilla extract. And then they were looking for a car that would fit everybody. The whole point is because some people just don't have their character figured out yet. They don't know their character. And so by giving a couple of these workshops, 20, 30 minutes, you give people a chance to find their characters before they start playing, especially if you're starting at like 3rd level. Because by 3rd level, a character should already know enough about who they are. So that's why I say that RP workshops benefit everybody, not just people on streets.
Yeah, I want to second that, because it's I don't care who you are. You write a character, you write a detailed backstory. You have all of your ideas about who this character is. The second you sit down at a table and you start interacting that character with other people, things change. And how you intended them in your head and how they are coming out of your mouth are always two different things. And you have to find your voice in the character. You have to figure out how they react to whatever situation is thrown at them. And so it often takes 2 or 3 good sessions before you really have a grasp on the character fully, no matter how many pages of backstory you wrote. So those RP workshops, those little exercises, help everybody find who their character really is. Like it gives you. You're not going to figure it all out in those scenarios, but you're going to have a head start going into session 1. You're going to be a couple steps ahead of where you would have been otherwise, and that's important because it gives the character more continuity through.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I can see your points of view, and I fully understand and support those ideas. But you guys let me lead this, so. But yes, I agree. Yes, and you have very valid points for an RP workshop. It's just not something I've ever run on my end for my players, but again, teach their own. And it's not something I even thought of bringing up. But some players are a little more roll versus roll, if you understand the difference.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why I make sure to include combat sessions in these RP workshops, where it's just combat, to get the people familiar with their character and what their character can do. so that they're not stuck in indecision paralysis when it comes their turn. And this is not to say, oh, everybody needs to know exactly what they're going to do when their turn hits. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it gives you familiarity with what you can do so you don't feel as awkward, because I've been there when it's my turn and I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? Remember, I did say this is for mature audiences and viewer discretion is advised. And I can't make a decision on what to do. I feel awkward about that because I don't know the character well enough. So,
especially when you're playing with other players and they do things that totally negate what you're just about to do. So
yeah, but we're talking about like also those combat workshops also not just let you get familiar with your character, but give you an idea of what everyone else is going to do in combat when your group gets into combat the first time. And especially if you're a group that's supposed to know each other and supposed to have worked together before, those insights are going to make the first combat you actually have for real look right, because you're going to have some idea what the other guy's about to do.
And see, and as I look back, see what you got, your RP workshops, I generally bleed into my session 1. My session 1 is generally a one almost insular, self-contained adventure module thing that doesn't really affect the campaign much, but it's where I tend to, all right, here's your characters are brought together, you're doing this task. And this is where we learn about the characters. This is where we start figuring out how they're going to combat, how the combat works. It's not very high stress combat, as it's not going to be a deadly encounter of some sort, but it's enough to challenge them so they start to figure out how their characters work before they step out into the actual world of the campaign.
So you are doing RP workshop. You're just doing it as your first session instead of in between sessions. So yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so your session 1 is the tutorial level on the video game.
Yes, it is generally just to give everyone a feel for what their characters do, what they can do, and how the rule set works. Because we jump between rule sets often for campaigns. So
let's talk about some of the things that you want to discuss when you are doing your session 0. I have a checklist of things. And the first and foremost is the comfort level of each party member. I have a worksheet. I need to get that put up online so that I can share it out. But you can find it out there. It is a worksheet that covers a plethora of topics and things that characters can say, yeah, I'm comfortable with this in my game, or if it's off stage, I'm okay with it, or no, don't bring this into my game at all. And so that lets you know as a DM, what people are comfortable with so that you're not triggering someone. The next thing that I talk about is safety tools. And I saw Loch grab some of his safety tools. Colored cards. I use safe words because we're on stream and I don't always see what's going on because I'm looking at things and everything. But these colored cards are great safety tools. Walk us through them, Loch.
Okay, so we got your green. You're almost never going to use this one. This is a card that you're only going to pull out for generally after you have pulled out one of the other cards, and now you're saying, we're all good, keep going. We're fine now. This is good. This is your green light. It's a stoplight, guys. This is not rocket surgery. This is your yellow light. This is, that's getting close to a line for me. So be mindful of how you proceed, because this is your trigger warning. You're approaching a subject that I might find triggering in some way, and that's on my list. I've already told you. Remember, it's there. Do you remember that that's on my list? Please slow down and be careful. This can also be I need a pause. Check in with people when they throw that one. This is stop. This is hard. No, I'm done. No, that is too far. That has crossed the line for me, and I need to stop. And then this is my favorite because this is not a stoplight color, and that's the X. And mine happens to be on safety orange because that's what the color I had left in the packet of cards that I bought. Also, it makes it very visible. This is, I'm still cool, but this subject is starting to trip me. Move on. This is jump ahead. This is, we need to change the subject. And so those are your safety cards. Those are your stoplight. So let's your DM know how you're doing in a scene. If if you don't want to say anything out loud or you can't say anything out loud in that moment, sometimes when you're starting to feel those feelings, it's hard to verbalize. Trauma affects us all, folks. So
Yep.
when your trauma is rearing its ugly head, don't hesitate to say, hey, can we take a break, or can we leave that subject alone? Can we move on to something else? Can we walk back a little bit from that edge? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to throw this out there. As a DM, if somebody uses a safe word or pulls a card or whatever, take a break. Check in with your player. See what's going on. Make sure they are okay to continue. You take 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It just give them a chance to breathe and step back. It's very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Raff. Sorry.
I'd like to bring this back around though. In session 0, when you're filling out that worksheet, which I highly recommend everyone use, you can find a copy of it. We need to get it up on the website, but I used it for my campaign and it's wonderful because the DM gives me a guidelines.
I just shared a version of it into the chat for everyone.
Cool. But as a DM, you need to let the players see those as well. So as a player, I'm playing with Loch as another player. I don't wander into a topic that would trigger him. As my player is working through his actions and so forth, or interactions with other characters. So I know where the guidelines are as well for the other players. I think that helps. So it keeps the entire group.
Yeah. So what I do is, so that not anybody feels like put on the spot or called out or whatever, is I go through and I compile a master spreadsheet with all the this is okay in veils and this is a definitely do not, and share that out so that everybody knows, so not everybody has to read everybody else's worksheet. They have one worksheet that they can read through and know what topics to stay away from.
Yes.
Now, the worksheet I shared, I just want to say real quick, the worksheet that I shared is an abbreviated version of the one we use. We've expanded it. We found a much more expansive one. This is the first one I could find online very quickly to throw up so that people have an idea what the worksheet looks like. If you go and search for RPG consent forms or RPG consent checklist, you will find more versions of it. Find the one that is right for your table. I recommend one with the most stuff you can find on it because that gives the broadest swath of this is what's okay for my players and what isn't. It gives you the more knowledge, the better, right?
Yes.
Right. And I will get with our webmaster and get ours, the one that we use, put up on our website so you guys can download it. All right. So the next thing that we need to talk about during our session 0, scheduling and time commitment. How often are we playing? How long are we playing when we do play? Are we able to commit to playing X amount? Are we going to commit to 3 hours, but if everybody's ready to go and able to go, we'll go to 5 hours, or do we have a hard stop? This is important because this way you don't have a lot of canceled sessions. If you work, look, everybody has a life. Everybody gets, well, most everybody, I don't. My world consists of this work. Yeah. But, And there's going to be times that you have to cancel sessions just because people couldn't come through or certain people couldn't come through or whatever. But if you start at the beginning with honest expectations of how often you can play, how long you can play, and everyone commits, it makes it a lot easier and less canceled session.
Yes. And that's, again, communication, but being able to set up your schedule ahead of time, even when you're recruiting players to the game or getting players to show up, you have to talk about your schedule. And yes, schedules will change in a long-term campaign. But if it's a good game, they'll make time to come play. Our Wednesday nights are protected from about everything now. It's almost sacred night for us to get together and do our Pathfinder campaign because we've been doing it for 2.5 years now.
I mean, yeah, and depending on where you live, sometimes that's the thing of it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, most of us D&D players aren't hardcore Christians. So like here in the South, Wednesday night's a great night for D&D because all the Baptists go to church. So do all the Methodists. They all go to church service on Wednesday night. That means that 90% of the people you know aren't available or wanting you to do things on Wednesday night. Wednesday night's great for.
Mm-hmm. So, other things to discuss in session 0: your rules of the table, your I don't want to say code of conduct, but things you expect out of your players. I've actually got a list.
Definitely.
I have a list that I publish and I kick out to my players. That way they understand my expectations. And the first one, Raff's Rules of the Game, 5th edition: stupidity can and will be punished. If your party members let you do something stupid, they had better run quickly because they may get caught in the punishment as well. Your character's actions have consequences, and that's kind of the thing I push. If your characters do something dumb, it has a consequence. Your actions have a consequence in the world no matter what you do. Just understand that. I roll on D&D Beyond because we're all online. The next one is one I've encountered in sessions before. What I, as the DM, say goes. When I make a ruling, it stands. If you disagree with it, talk to me about it afterwards, and we'll discuss it. But argue the rules with me in the middle of a session wastes everyone's time and annoys me. See rule number 4. Rule number 4: annoying the DM counts as doing something stupid.
This is right. Yeah, go ahead, Loch.
I was gonna say I just sent Tier a video on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send it to you too because I think you'd enjoy it. It is a video on how to handle rules arguments at the table, and the guy suggests like a 4-step strategy for when a rules argument comes up. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then it's done. And like it's how to adjudicate. It's also like part of that is how to adjudicate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what factors should you be considering when you make your ruling? And it's a really good video. I really enjoyed it. His example's a little. Me and Tier found a flaw in his example. Tier specifically pointed it out. But yeah, it's a good video. I'll kick that over to you so you can peruse it because it's really helpful. I don't even remember the name of the channel it was on. Otherwise, I would. Actually, I sent it to Tier so I can just go look while you guys continue to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you need to set the expectations of the table. Things like, is alcohol going to be allowed? Are portable devices such as phone and tablets going to be allowed? In this day and age, where everything's on D&D Beyond and stuff, that's something really to consider. Are you going to allow people
access to the mobile devices?
Yeah. Things like what style game? You're setting the technical expectations. It's like I'm telling people, we have 2 campaigns coming up, Sins of Blood and Bloodlines. We have new cast in those. We've got, Raff is joining, Mander is joining, Ames, you know him as Lollipop from chat, is joining, and Christina is joining. And it's like I warn people, these are going to be dark and gritty games, because people may not be into dark and gritty. And they may say, okay, if it's going to be dark and gritty, I was thinking it was going to be comedy. I'm going to bow out.
I mean, there will be dick joke because it's us. But yeah.
Mhm.
By the way, the name of the YouTube channel I found that video on is all one word. It's Super Geek Mike. And the video is called "How to Resolve Any Rules Argument in D&D." I very much enjoy his channel. You should go check him out.
Cool. Other things that you set. Do you allow PvP? I don't allow PvP in my games. Not anymore. And so, that's something that needs to be established. One of the things that I said, looking at my checklist, rules lookup. We'll take 5 minutes to look up a rule, usually especially with everything being at the access of your fingertips with the internets, usually you can find your answer quickly. But we'll take 5 minutes. If we haven't come to a consensus in 5 minutes, I'll make a judgment call, and then we'll go on. I've also added an addendum to that if I need to retcon a situation because I was wrong in my judgment call, which I have been in the past, that I will address that next session.
Yep. That's my rule 6. If I made a mistake, I will fix it in the next session after we look it up later. And also remind them, if I'm breaking the rules, I may be doing so for a whole host of reasons, including things you don't know about what's going on. Like I said, the characters only have their viewpoint. I got other things going on in the background that may change the situation and the way this particular ruling is going.
Yeah, that's why I like as a player, I always try to word carefully when a situation like that shows up. When there's a rule that when something isn't working the way that I know that it should because I know the rules, and I want to ask the DM about that, I will phrase that question like, "Hey, DM, is he just did that? Even though I have or X has this?" And when the DM goes, yes, I'm like, okay, you're breaking the rules for a reason. You have plot behind that, and I'm cool with that. I don't just say, hey, no, you can't do that. That's not in the rules. No. That's confrontational. You don't want to be confrontational about it. That makes you the asshole. You ask the question in a pointed way, saying, hey, even though we have this thing, even though I have this power, even though they're this and that gives them that thing, even that isn't, it's still working the way you said. Because sometimes DMs forget. We as DMs, we forget shit like that. We're like, oh, right, they're immune to the sleep spell because they're an elf. Fuck, you're right. I did screw that up. But sometimes they're like, no, it still fucking works. And you're like, oh, now I got that chill down my spine that the DM was probably hoping for the whole time because I asked the question the right way to give the drama a chance.
Right. Yep. And that's one of the things that you need to understand is that sometimes things will be different than what the rules say, and there's always a reason.
In the immortal words of Mr. Hobbs, we're a set of guidelines.
Exactly.
Yep.
Other things that you cover during this when you're setting your table expectations, home brewed rules.
Yep.
I have a few, like I do not force encumbrance. I say use common sense. I will start enforcing encumbrance if I have to. If you're trying to carry, 3 chests and 20 swords, and we're going to have a conversation. I do my crits is max damage plus a die roll. So if your dice is, if your damage is 1d8 and you roll in that 20, you get 8 plus 1d8 plus your modifier. That is my home brewed rule. I use fumble charts. If you roll a natural 1 on an attack, there's consequences because it's fun.
Now, fumbles are fun for everybody because it varies the situation up.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, fumbles are fun. I
It-
don't
it-
mind
it's,
when I
it-
fumble.
it's
I
drama.
feel
I'm like,
bad if
oh,
I hit that guy next to me that's my friend.
uh-huh.
Sorry, Raff.
Oh,
I never hit you. I just didn't heal you.
exactly, jerk.
I was saving the world. Thank you, anti-magic.
Exactly. We don't hold against you much. But no, yes. I play with fumbles generally, and it generally I don't have a fumble chart, but I'll let the story decide what the fumble's gonna be. Sometimes it's just a random chance you can hit your buddy. Other time it's more entertaining as your sword goes flying and kills a squirrel. How
Oh,
about
poor squirrels.
I was gonna say squirrels die a lot in your world there, Tier. And
Yeah, you have no idea.
yes. And on the fumble side, I also apply it to the NPCs. The NPCs can fumble and things can go bad, and I play that out as well. So it doesn't feel like it's just a tax against the player. I've had
Oh, yeah,
numerous NPCs.
when the big bad guy, when the big bad's like major henchman who's been hunting you, uh, is there his general or what the fuck ever is there and is attacking you and rolls a nat 1 and then drops his super magic sword that he's been hurting you with the whole time, and you get to go, I'm gonna get to that first because I go first next round. That is an amazing moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is, you're like, oh, you dropped the thing that makes you so cool. Give me a second.
Yeah. Yes. And as I've been accused of, I hire all my henchmen from Cobra Commander. There's a reason. They're cheap,
Well,
but they can't hit anything.
see, that's one of the things that I have always played with. Whatever you can do, they can do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can fumble, they can fumble. If you get max damage plus a D roll, they get max damage plus a D roll. You know, it makes it fair.
Yes.
Um, some of the other things to set as expectations is what is the minimum number of players you will run a session at? Both Sins of Blood and Bloodlines have 6 players. So I will only run games if I have 4 or more players. That is my personal rule. One of the things that I have included in this, and this goes back a ways to other games and stuff, it hasn't been affected in Darkened Queen and Shadowed Rose or Scions of Oblivion, but unasked for rolls will not be counted. If you grab a dice and roll it and say, hey, I rolled a 20 on my perception, you didn't ask to roll a perception. I didn't ask you to roll a perception.
I think the one thing that I've seen you make exception for, you've never busted my chops about it anyway. So maybe I've been doing it wrong. But it's because we all forget it so often. Is concentration checks.
Yes.
When I've taken damage and you've moved on to the next person, and then at some point I go, by the way, I made that concentration check for the damage you just dealt me. Thanks. That because we all forget that we need to do that right then. Unless there's a big spell up that like you're really pissed about and you want to make go away, then you're like, that's when you're on the concentration check. You're like I just hit you for so much damage. Make a concentration check. But usually, you've got some spell going and it's concentration, and no one's thinking about that it's concentration. And then suddenly you're like, oh wait, I took damage and he's moved on to 2 other people since then. I should probably roll that concentration and not like break the scene to do so. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll roll. I have Warcaster. I have advantage on this. Oh, I'm good. All right. Here, I made my concentration check. Thanks.
Yes.
That's little things like that. But like deciding you're gonna make a skill check because you want to know something going on in the scene, that's totally not cool.
Nope. Yes, the all fabled concentration tech. And no, DMs don't target you specifically to make things go away.
No, never.
Yeah. Stupid healing.
Look, the bad guys know how to fight.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, just like oh shit, there's a vanisher in this party. We need to kill them first. They know or they figure out really quick, oh shit, this person is a high level caster. We need to hurt them
Yeah.
But-
Whoa. Okay. No, your characters and your players and your NPCs know what they're doing. I've had whole scenes where both sides looks like we're set up for the battle of the ages. It's gonna be epic. It's cool. And no, it's the Keystone cops versus the Foot Ninja from the TMNT world. Oh, so many ones were rolled that night.
Peppers.
It's a puppy. Oh,
This is Zoe. I say hi, Zoe.
Zoe.
Speak. You're not looking at me. You're looking at everything else but me.
Uh-huh.
And me and the camera doesn't count for giving you commands, does it?
Nope. Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was checking at chat. Someone said, yes, I do need a bigger dice jail some nights.
Yeah, there's not a dice jail big enough. Other things that you need to discuss is death. How is death rolls going to be handled? I originally thought I was going to do them in secret, but because it brings such tension to the audience, they will be done in the open. And if anyone's caught metagaming will be punished. But how do you handle death? How do you handle permadeath? The character actually dies. How do you handle the character dying? How do you handle the player bringing another character in? These are important things. So these are things that you consider and discuss in session 0.
Other rulings like multi-classing. You don't allow multi-classing your table. I think I would allow it, but as a player, I generally tend away from it anyway, so it's not something I encourage, but if you really want to do it, okay. At least
I'm a multi-class fan. I'm a hardcore multi-class fan. I love the infinite diversity you can make from multi-classing. Now, I am against people. I'm going to take a dip of one level of this thing just to get X, unless they have a very specific character build, like I want to play as Batman. And in order to be Batman, the way that I'm building Batman, I need one level of this to give me X so that I can live my Batman dream. Okay, that's fine. You have a plan, you have a thing. But if you're just like, it gives me this thing that I think will make me super powerful and cool. No, that's just min-maxing. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Have a story reason. Or at least a theme reason,
Yeah.
Although sometimes building a character just to do one thing so really well and then building everything around that and figuring out what multi-class, that's a fun brain exercise for me. I almost never actually play those characters, but I do build them from time to time.
Yep. Well, and as we discussed before with 5th Ed, with all the subtypes and the subclasses for your regular classes, you could find just about anything you're actually looking for in one of the regular classes. Earlier editions of and 3.5 and 3, you had the alternate classes. Oh, you're muted, Loch.
Prestige classes.
That's right, the prestige classes, where you had to take multi-class in certain classes in order for you to even get to a prestige class.
Oh yeah, no, if you wanted to play a prestige class in 3.5 or even in 3, you had to. You know how many legal pads I went through? Because you had to design your character level by level, feat by feat, stat by stat, from 1 to 20, or at least like 1 to 13, in order to figure out how you were going to prestige.
Yep.
Because if you screwed up anywhere along the way, you could ruin your chances at getting that prestige class because their prerequisites were so precise. You only got so many feats, and you have to have this feat, this feat, this feat, and this feat, and a base attack bonus of +3 and these skills in order to take this prestige class. Okay. So that means that at first level, I have to take this feat, and then
and I have to take a level.
By the time I get to level 13, I can take that prestige class as my 13th level.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And these are all things that you talk about in session 0.
Right.
Other things, leveling. How are you going to do leveling? I do milestone leveling, and I will be doing the leveling at the end of the session. HP and stuff will go into effect after a long rest. You're not going to level up and suddenly become healed completely after you just got through fighting that big dragon.
Bum, ba-da, bum, ba-da, bum. We killed the dragon. We leveled up. Our health points are all restored. And the Mario or the Link music plays in the background, right? That's not how it works.
Damn.
Feats. Are you going to allow feats? Are you going to allow someone at level up to take ASI and a feat? Is it going to be ASI or a feat? Or are you not going to allow feats altogether? For me, it's one or the other.
I think that's what D&D Beyond in general, as a default, enforces. It's one or the other.
Yes.
You can get around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We tried in the quarantine game, tier allowed us to take one ASI point and a feat if we wanted one, or we could take 2 ASI points. We tried that. It made us very overpowered.
The other thing to talk about is how are magic items going to work? If you find a ring of mind shielding and a gnome was wearing it and you're an orc, are you going to be able to wear it? If you attune to an item, will you learn that item's trigger, or do you have to go on a quest to find how to activate your sword of, the mighty smites? Those sort of things. These are things.
Ooh, I want a sword of mighty smites.
But then you get to what I consider the most important part of session 0. And this is where the adult conversation comes in. As players, what do you expect from the game? What is your goal for your character? What do you want them eventually to have happen? What do you expect the game to be like? This is where we all have a conversation about expectations so that we can all get on the same page, because there may be things that you're expecting that just I cannot accommodate. And so I need to let you know up front. I understand where you're coming from, but unfortunately in this campaign, that's just not going to happen. Or, okay, that sounds cool. We will make sure that incorporates, and it's those adult conversations that help establish a solid foundation for communication throughout the game. For Bloodlines and Sins of Blood, all 6 of each cast are committing to at least a year, because that's how long I expect the games to run. Maybe longer. All depends if y'all monkey wrench me or not. I know that for a while it'll be monkey wrench proof, just so I can get a couple of months out of my story.
You say that, and
so help me God, if you all end this within the first couple of months, I'm done.
No, not end. Just diverge. I mean, I bet I could. I wouldn't do this to you, but I bet I could diverge your game just by claiming to have seen a fluffy, fuzzy, cute animal in the woods, and let's go chase it.
I'm in.
See?
No, yeah, you have to say that now.
I already got Raff, so all I have to do is get Alice and Ren on board, and your campaign is going into the woods to look for a fluffy, fuzzy bunny or an animal of some sort. Doesn't matter.
And that I'm okay with.
I'm just saying. Monkey wrench. Define monkey wrench.
Yeah, define your monkey wrench, because our current Pathfinder campaign, it's running 2 parties similar to this. One party, the other party is very much following the main plotline goal of what's going on in the world. Our party, on the other hand, says, "Oh look, there's plot over there. We're going that way." We're actively running away from the plot as much as possible. It's hysterical.
You are doing all the side quests first, so you can be of high enough level to just walk through the plot when you get to it.
Don't tell our DM. Exactly.
What I'm referring to is where you find a way to skip, several plot points, several story arcs, That for the first couple months at least, that's not going to be possible.
You mean when we accidentally open that bookcase and find that secret layer with the magic thing in it that we weren't supposed to find yet?
Yes, just like that.
Mhm.
That wasn't really a railroad though, or a monkey wrench. That was just well, now you have this weapon and you're supposed to wait for several levels to have it. So now I have to make shit more difficult.
There are
That's not.
consequences.
Oh, you just got the Prince of Angermore killed. What's that going to do to the storyline? Oh, you want the Crown of Angermore. What's that going to do to the storyline? Oh, you were just acknowledged as the Queen of Angermore. That just fucked the storyline. You know, that sort of thing. But I digress.
You're not bitter.
You know, but as I was saying, it's a place to communication is key, and you need to check in with your players from time to time to make sure everybody's still having a good time.
Mhm.
And so, that will that will help there. And then finally, for us, we do a stream. We have a 30-minute call time. That 30-minute call time is going to be enforced this time. It has to be, because there's 6 of us, and if we have tech gremlins, which we will have, it's not fair to everyone, and it's not fair to the audience to have to wait because we were late and then our tech gremlin showed up. But as Ken said, we are starting at this time.
Mhm.
This is what time you need to be here and ready to play. And I know that's going to be hard for people like me, but
Mhm.
If I'm ever gonna be late, and I admit I am an offender on this. I'm horrible about being late because I have the ADHDs. But anytime I've whenever I've been late, I always try to at least message and say, hey, this is when I'm going to be on. I'm running behind because of X. I'll be there as soon as I can, which is at least the least considerate thing you can do.
Yes,
Or that didn't come out the way I intended it to grammatically, but you know what I meant.
Yes, communicate. Food. For our games in the evenings, dinner. It's around dinner time, so it's a time to discuss how you're handling food. Are you bringing your own? You bringing snacks? You sharing? Not sharing? Set those expectations ahead of time so people know. Are we all pitching in for pizza for the night? Okay, cool. Bring your money, or not. It's it's how you set it up, and bribing the DM with Cool Ranch Doritos might work occasionally.
I tell you, my quarantine players made sure I always had Monster. They was a standing a thing to keep me in Monster so that I wasn't grumpy. Now I have a
Amazon is a
caffeine
wonderful
player.
thing.
Yeah, Lollipop is putting out your list of acceptable bribes in chat.
Yep, pizza, Dr. Pepper, and Reese's. You can bribe me with those. All right, so that's session 0.
Wait. Hold on. We didn't cover the most important thing that should be covered in session 0.
Okay, what's
and,
that?
And that's when the animal sacrifices and child sacrifices start.
What?
Sorry, I've watched a whole lot of things about the Satanic Panic in the last couple of weeks.
God, yes.
I watched a video reacting to the Law Enforcement Guide to Finding Satanic Groups that was published in the early 90s, where they list the things that are like, and they had a calendar. They had the weirdest calendar. It was a calendar of satanic sacrifices, and it had the minimum to maximum age that the person being sacrificed could be, and what orifices you could have sex with them in beforehand on that date on the calendar. It was weird. Like anus was on all of them. Ears sometimes, eye sockets, and like the person must be between the ages of 11 and 26. That's weirdly specific.
I have
someone
I remember
someone
that
wrote
panic,
that.
but yes, I have questions.
As someone whose mother was Pentecostal
Mm.
during the Satanic Panic, it was not a fun time.
Yeah, no, I
Mhm.
Roman Catholic family, and so yeah, my parents threatened to throw out my D&D books and my dice, and take me to the priest for an exorcism. I had to hide my dice and my books at my friend's house, whose parents didn't care, and then growing up in the South as a Catholic, all of the other children assumed that I was a Satan worshiper to begin with, because them Catholics is weird.
All right.
Mhm.
On
Is that
that
like
note, we're going to take our break. We'll be back in 10 minutes. And we'll talk about RP workshops and first sessions and whatever other tangent we get cast on.
Mhm.
So hang out while we get our snickety snacks, our beverages of choice, and we'll be back. our beverages of choice, our stickety snacks, and handle the things we needed to handle.
Mhm.
Today, we're talking Session 0, RP workshops, and first sessions. We had an excellent question come up during the break in the audience. Latin AC 2002, Latina C 2002. However you say that, whatever it's supposed to be pronounced. I'm sorry if I'm fucking it up. I am overly medicated because bad pain days. So anyway, they said age of players, is that one of the guidelines that you set? I do set age limits on my games. I will not let anybody under the age of 17 play at my table unless I'm doing a special one shot for younger people. But for long-term campaigns, you got to be at least 17, and you have to be a mature 17. Like, I have to know you. And I don't mean, look, every time I say mature, people are like, but we make dick jokes and we do this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your emotional maturity. Are you adult enough to handle the shit that I'm going to throw at you? Because I'm going to throw some dark and twisted shit in your direction. And I don't want to break you as a player. I want to break your character. I don't want to break you as a player.
Fair enough. And that also guides, that age limit also guides what style of campaign you're running. My current 5th ed campaign, I do have a minor involved in it, but his parents are also 2 players of the campaign. But it does set an artificial limit to how far I can take certain subjects and what subjects get brought up. But again, that's part of your discussion of Session 0. I had them fill that out for him as well, the limits check sheet. So I knew, all right, we've got a minor. What subjects are, as a parent, you want off the table entirely so it doesn't come up?
And that's cool. That's one way to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So good question. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
Another thing that was brought up while we were on break is about checking in. As important as it is to stop if a player says stop, or to skip ahead if a player says skip ahead. If you hold up the green card, Loch. If you get the green card, it's important to respect that and keep going. Because they're telling you keep going. Or continue, or however you want to word it.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to respect them enough to keep going. They know their limits. They know what they can and cannot handle. They know if they want you to keep going or not. So, yeah. All right. So, let's talk about.
Just real quick. That is the we often talk about having adult conversations at the table, and by that we mean communicating honestly and openly and being receptive to what you are saying or is being said to you, either as a player or as a DM. And having that honest flow of communication is important. And just like respecting someone when they say stop is that open, honest communication that's adult conversation. It's the same thing when they say keep going. You might have tripped on something for them, but you've moved past it and they're good. And you stopping the game because you think they need it is not respecting what they're telling you, is not engaging in that communication the way you should be. So it is as important as stopping to keep going, because otherwise you are singling them out in a way that they don't want to be singled out.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And so you're not respecting their boundary by not continuing when they ask you to continue. Anyway, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And Lollipop's the one that brought that up. So thank you, Lolly, for bringing that up so that we could address that. Like they said in chat, some people want the emotion. I have been told by multiple people, give me the feels. One person even said, make me cry. May God have mercy on their soul. They have no idea what they're asking for. Look, you can ask Loch. He was there. I had 11 people sobbing like little children. So
I cried like a little kid with a skint knee. I ain't too proud to say it. You know, like, yeah, no, it's a thing and it happens. Like, and sometimes that emotional catharsis is really good. And sometimes you really want that. And sometimes, you know, you it may not be what you thought you wanted coming into to the scene, but by the end of the scene, you're like, God damn, that was such a good scene. Oh, that was so emotionally charged, and it had me feeling all the feels, and I was really in my character. And you know, if something in that scene hangs you up, and you're like, move on, and the DM moves on, and you hold up the green card, it's as important to you as it is to everybody else that scene progress, because you might need that release at the end of the scene. So, you know, yeah, you have to respect what their players are telling you. And that's just being a good DM. Is, you know, a lot of being a good DM is listening to what your players are saying, listening to what your players are telling you, even if they're not saying it directly, even if they're saying it with a card, even if they're saying it, you know, if they're saying it out loud, if, you know, or if they're expressing it through their character. Listening to what they're saying informs how you tell that story, and good DMs play with that, play on that, and play off of that as appropriate.
Yes, they do. So that is session 0 in a nutshell. We've finally gone in depth into it. Now let's talk about RP workshops. What are they? How do they work? They are simple. They can be simple. There's many approaches. There is the first approach that I use, where I get my players together. I have them pick a character from the campaign that they're going to be playing in, and I send them on simple, mundane tasks, just so they get a feel for their character. Like, I have them shopping for groceries and they can't find the vanilla extract. That was hilarious. Or I have them at a car dealership looking for a vehicle that that will accommodate all of them. Also hilarious. The mental image of Atreus getting in the passenger seat of the Mustang, putting their goggles on, and acting like the car is going really fast while it's sitting still was priceless.
I do what I can.
The other way you can do it is the way that you do it, Raff, where you have that session where it is not story driven. It is just a feel for the mechanics, a feel for the characters. You know, they're a simple quest, as it were, ABC. And that's wonderful too. See, you've been doing RP workshops and didn't even know it.
Yeah, and yeah, that's one way to describe it. Yeah, it was session 1 for me is generally here's a simple quest. I've even pulled them out of the box, if you will. If you look up Epic Encounters, Steamforge does a good job with those. But that's what I used for the last one, and it was simply, all right, the players get together, the characters have just been brought together to do this quest. Go do it. You get a feel for the characters get a feel for each other, and there's some light combat in there, so it gives them a chance to figure out how they work in combat and how they work together. It was a good time.
Yeah, I mean, there's very famously in the D&D box set, and I'm pretty sure it's available for free online at this point. The starter module, which is the Minds of Fendelver, is a great, like, let's just run through that real quick and let you all get a feel for playing your characters and work out your relationships. Something I do, and we're jumping back just a little bit. This is something I often do in session 0, but it really lets you cement it if you do it in an RP. If you do an RP workshop of some sort, or even run through a non-consequential module real quick, starter session game, is bonds. There's an entire system. I think it was first published by Powered by the Apocalypse. And it's a system where everybody at the table, every player at the table, I should say, picks 2 other characters to have a bond with. Now, that bond can be positive or negative. You can be rivals, you could be friends, you could be ex-lovers, whatever. Everybody picks 2 characters that have some kind of bond with, and then that creates a web around the table, people who have connections. And then that first session where you start playing, or that first RP workshop, lets you start like flushing out those bonds so that you have an idea. Now, Powered by the Apocalypse rewards you because their leveling system is different. And one of the ways you get XP in that system is by fulfilling a bond. And when you fulfill a bond with another character, you then get to write a new one with someone else. So let's say that Tyr and I are playing characters, and I say our bond is that we're exes and we have some unresolved issues. And so at some point over the course of play, during a session somewhere along the line, we actually have a conversation where we resolve at least some of those unresolved issues relating to our previous relationship. And then at the end of the session, the DM's going through the XP and you say, I think I have completed that bond. And I think as a DM, you stay the fuck out of that. When someone says they've completed the bond, unless they have blatantly not completed their bond and they're just trying to get XP, you yes and them on that. If you feel like you have completed that bond, you have completed that bond. Cool. You get 1 XP because that's what you get in that system. 1 XP is a lot in that system, believe me. You get 1 XP for having completed that bond, and now you get to write a new one. And so then I pick Raff because of something Raff did in the situation. Raff hit me. He rolled a fumble and he hit me, and now I'm mad at him about it. So I have.
I can do so much worse. Come on now, find something worthy being mad at me.
So okay, fine. Raff insulted my mom during that last session, and I'm angry about it. So I'm going to say that I am distrustful of Raff's character until I can get that apology that I feel I deserve. And that's my new bond. And then that leads to me as a player who wants XP wanting to explore that bond. Now in D&D it's a little different because the XP works differently, but maybe the DM gives an inspiration if you complete a bond or something, gives you some incentive to complete that bond. And now you're like, you shouldn't be stepping over each other to try and do it, but when it happens naturally in the course of the campaign, me and Raff, Raff does something in combat and saves me from a shot that might have really hurt. And I'm like, you know what? I think we've resolved that. I no longer am looking for that apology from you because I'm going to take that action you took in combat to save me as the apology. And now that bond is fulfilled and I get to make a bond with someone else.
Okay.
So I really like that system because it encourages player interaction. And sometimes writing down a dynamic as part of your character sheet makes it more tangible and something you have in front of you to play off of, something to tangibly go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be playing that.
Cool.
Whereas just knowing it up here, sometimes it always doesn't come up in the course of the game. Oh, I wanted XP this game. I need to do this. Or I know that they have a grudge against me and I want to fix that.
Mm-hmm. Question you about that though. When you set up the bonds, do you let it be known publicly about the bond, or is it something just you and the DM know about?
Oh no, we always do it at the table. It is done in front of everybody.
Okay.
Because sometimes the bonds are of a nature where you need to, especially in session zero, you have to, if I have a bond with you, if I've decided we're rivals because of X, we're all talking about, in session zero, hopefully we're all talking about our backstories a little bit. We're all sort of sharing some insights about who we are, especially if we're a party that already knows each other. If you're a party that doesn't know each other, it's harder to have this, but you can figure it out. There are ways to do it. But if we're a party that knows each other, this gives some depth to that rather than just saying you all know each other.
Yep.
And it allows you, and so everybody at the table going, all right, well, I'm choosing this bond. Also, it stops one person from having a bond with everybody because everyone chose that character to have a bond with. It encourages all the players to look at who's taken bonds and who hasn't. You know, and therefore it spreads it around more amicably. And so yeah, everybody knows about it because sometimes you need that, like, we're rivals because of this, and Raff might go, oh, that's good. That's going to inform the way I play this with my character. So you knowing about it is as important as me knowing about it. So yeah, it's always done in the open at the table. And then the you know, empowered by the apocalypse with the leveling at the end of the game, when you're going through, the DM says, okay, what do you have for your XP? And the person goes, well, I think I did this, and I think I did this. And you're like, okay, yeah, you completed that bond, scratch that one off, write a new one. Who are you taking a bond with? And then you can be like, well, who only has one bond right now, or who, you know, whatever. And you can pick that person, and or me and this person had this interesting interaction in the game, and so I want to take a bond with them because it's interesting story-wise right now to be bonded to them in this way. So yeah, I think doing it openly is the only way to make that system work.
Mm-hmm. Fair. I like that. I'll have to think on that one for a while, because I think I may have to incorporate something like that in my next campaign. Damn you, Loch!
Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world.
This is my job. It's what I do.
So, again, RP workshops, they're not that big of a deal, not that hard of a thing. You don't even have to worry about mechanics. So you're just giving the players a chance to find their characters, to flesh out their characters, to help find their, I'm going to use the word voice. I don't mean like, oh, look at me. No, it's not the voice they're using, but it's the character's voice.
It's not the I'm Garbo.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tira always gets to do the Garbo impression. I never do. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is important to find the character's voice, for lack of a better word, to figure out who the character is in your head and how they come through your mouth. Not just the accent they're using, but how they express them. Something that I found with, you know, in a couple of, and I think I want to change it, but it's something I'm going to have to work on. And I'm glad we're doing RP sessions. Playing Atreus, who's going to be my new character in Bloodlines, folks. Playing Atreus, I find myself sort of almost like a stoner calling people man a lot. And I kind of want to change that because it doesn't feel right for the character, but it's something I'm just doing. And so it's a habit that I can now try and break before we actually start the campaign. Because now I've recognized that in this voice that I'm doing for the character, in this speech pattern, that naturally wants to follow at the end of things. And so it's something I can look to if I don't feel it's right for the character. And that's something that I can do in RP sessions before we start playing, so that I'm not making a drastic change to the character once the campaign starts.
And that's the gist of it. That they're simple,
Mm-hmm.
And as a DM, I will set the scene. I'm just quiet. I will watch unless I need to be an NPC, and then I will give feedback and go from there.
Tyr mentioned a couple of scenarios that he's put us in: the buying groceries, and the buying a car that would fit all of us, each of which had its own unique problem thrown in to make things more interesting. I would say if you're looking for ideas for this, go look at improv games that like improv comedy troupes play as practice. Not all of them are going to be appropriate for D&D, for a D&D role-playing session, but a lot of them are really good, like figure out a character real fast stuff. So go and look at improv exercise ideas and read through them and make sure they are appropriate for D&D. Ones that require a lot of pantomime, probably not going to work. But ones that are just situation-based that you can throw characters into are going to be great. And there's plenty of good ideas out there on the internet because there's a lot of people who do improv on the internet. So, yeah, that'd be my suggestion. If you're looking for good scenarios that are meaningless but will be fun to throw your characters into, go look at improv game.
Yeah, definitely.
Pantomime could be fun though. Not on stream, but
not on stream, but like, so I mean, yeah, pantomime. If you're playing, that's mime. That's not pantomime. It's different. Pantomime often, like, there's a game. There's a famous improv game. There's a couple of them. There's the mirror. There's one where you move other people's body parts for them. Those aren't going to help you figure out a character. Those are about body work on stage and about trust in your improv troupe. While trust is important in D&D, that's not the sort of trust we're looking for, because that's stage trust. It's different. It's a very different beast. So you want games that focus on character and scenario. You're playing and you're eliminating you're the milkman and you're for the most part. You can still say, okay, your character is acting as the milkman in this scenario and is delivering milk to this group, and they're having this issue, and go. But whatever. So, yeah.
You just cast a
pantomime
tangent.
could be fun at a table.
No, you just cast a tangent. I'm like, wait a second. Ooh, that could be kind of a fun dungeon encounter. The players can't talk at all. It's a cone of silence in the entire room for the trap, so you can't speak. So as players, you have to.
Let me write that down.
I just did. I'm like, that could be a fun little counter.
Yeah. There was Tyr said something earlier. No, Raff said something earlier, and I had a thought about something I had seen online recently. And I almost said it, and I'm like, no, Tyr's gonna fuck me with that if I say it. I'm not doing that. You can't make me.
Uh-huh. We got another channel for that.
No. I'll tell you this. It was when Rav was talking about his rules and that there were consequences for actions. I read a scenario that was perfectly in line with that and how consequences happen. But it would but I'm not introducing a new entity into your world that will royally fuck the party. You already do the thing that this entity does to us on occasion. I'm not giving you another tool to do that. No, fuck off.
Tyr, it's a whole lot of deep-seated, distrust. I don't know where that's coming from. Why at all?
You counterspell a couple of heals, and people suddenly.
Uh-huh.
Well, how about those second edition Rangers guys?
Uh-huh. I think I know what you're talking about now, but anyways.
Got something in my eye there.
Uh-huh. Yes.
For those that are listening on podcast, I was flipping Loch off. So
I mean, there's a lot of good ideas out there that you can, and some of those ideas might inspire ideas for you to work into the campaign later. I'm just saying, you go and you look up a couple of improv games and you're suddenly like, oh, wait. Or what your players do in one of the scenarios you throw at them for RP might generate an idea for you. Oh, wait, he just said that, which is exactly what's happening right now. Someone said something and one of us went, oh.
That could be fun.
Oh, wait, that gives me ideas. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, do you, but that you'd be surprised where inspiration strikes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. A good RP workshop might just throw you a bit of inspiration, or it might give you some insight into one of their characters for something you were already planning to do to them, and now you know how to do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Way to mess with them even more. All right. We got the RP workshop, and earlier on you mentioned session 1. I kind of combined that together. So you, Tyr, have a different definition of session 1?
Yes, I do. I think session one should be used to set the tone for what's to come. And it's a place it should be used as a way to allow. So you have your RP workshops and everybody gets to play in the RP workshops and everything. That's to find the character. Session 1 is now where you get to introduce your character. You get to reveal, how your character acts and reacts and all that. I think that, if you have combat, that it shouldn't be a deadly encounter. Unless, of course, you do something stupid like try to swing on the head dude when 30 of his guards are around. And then you have to scramble and go, okay, they're going to use non-lethal force because this will be the shortest fucking session ever.
Hashtag pants was robbed.
Pants was not robbed.
Hashtag pants was robbed.
Twice.
Oh.
Love you too.
You know, for me, I always write up what I call it a stinger or a teaser. And it is a overview, a partial, because it's not a full in-depth, but a partial overview of the world and things that are going on and stuff. That's always delivered at the beginning of the first session. You know, I will give it to you guys in writing beforehand, but I always deliver that at the beginning of the first session. The whole first session is for the people to get, like I said, they get to introduce their characters. They get to reveal this character or parts of the character. They don't have to reveal all of them. And it gives a chance for in-story interaction between the party that will impact the story as it goes forward.
Yes.
Yeah, and here's the thing. My opinion. This is, you don't have to do this. But if you can, I think you really should. If you're doing it Tyr's way, not Raff's way.
Mm-hmm.
In Raff's, this would be like session 2 or whatever. Yep. But at the end of that first consequential session, when you have introduced the characters to the main story, and let them get a feel for who they are and working together and all of that, their first like real, this is now serious, we're playing. If you can, as the DM, by the end of that session, right at the end of that session, if you can pull that off, is the best, is when you yank back on the fishing rod and you set the hook.
Mm-hmm.
You throw that, you end with that story note that says, oh shit, what's coming? That lets the players like really bite down on the meat of what's about to happen in the story and get excited for the next session and the game as a whole, where it's going to go. So if you can do that in your session 1, that is chef's kiss, just perfection. You can't always, not in a session 1. Depends on the campaign you're running. It depends on the thing. But if by the end of that, if not by the end of that session, by the end of that first the littlest arc, the little arc you're throwing in at the beginning, set that hook and let them take the bait that is the rest of the story. You've made something magical happen. And that gets everybody at the table excited for the rest of the campaign. It's a great opportunity. Don't fuck it up, no pressure.
Yeah, and sometimes that hook isn't till the second or third session too, just depending on how long your session is going and how much goes on in that encounter.
Yeah, so sometimes you have the hook, you have it baited and ready and waiting, and it's on your notes, and you know exactly where it's going to happen. And then the players take 2 hours discussing what food they're going to order at the pub. And you're like, oh, we're not going to get to that this time. And that's okay. That happens. But by the end of that, by the time they get to that spot in the story, the end of that first little arc, you can yank on that pole and set the hook in their mouth. You are exciting. You're ramping them up for the rest of the campaign. And I use bait and hook, and I'm not trying to be malicious. We're talking about the story, not catching your players and throwing them in a little bucket and then eating them later. Unless that's what they're there for.
It's funny you're talking about players taking 2 hours to do something. It never fails, and I find it hilarious. When I need the storyline to move at a certain clip, that's when my players will take forever discussing the most trivial and mundane things. And when I need them to role play, that's when they give me 2 lines and then look at me blankly. It never fails.
Uh-huh.
I would never do such a thing. I've never in my life.
Yes. Yeah, they want to role play out the thing that you're like moving along. We want to move. No, they're okay. We're still talking about this. Cool.
Because sometimes those are the best conversations. Those are the ones you really remember. You know, we had an entire how long in that game in season 1 in the carriage did we spend talking about cucumber sandwich milk? I'm sure that's not what your plan was for that game. But suddenly we had an interesting thing about a character, and we were like, what the fuck is that? We're going to explore this. We're going to delve the depths of cucumber sandwich milk.
And a lactose intolerant minotaur. Oh, that was
Yes, a lactose intolerant minotaur who had to throw up during the carriage ride, which then allowed the Vanisher and the King's Guard to find them. And at the time, the rogue was the only one that knew what the minotaur looked like.
We're okay. Above table question about all of that, because I'm really curious now, and it pertains to what we're talking about. How were the Vanishers? Were the Vanishers and the Kingsguard going to find us the entire time? Were they going to catch us, and we were going to have an encounter?
No.
Because I've always imagined since that scene happened, you as the DM with the stat blocks for the guards and the Vanisher right there, just waiting for a break for us to stop fucking talking for a minute about cucumber sandwich milk so you could have an encounter happen. Meanwhile, we're all just like, do. Oh, no, the Minotaur is going to throw up. No, so you're saying that encounter was just a consequence of Ben deciding his character needed to puke and asking the wagon to stop.
The entire time that it was going, I was over here rolling 2 die. 1 to represent your carriage, 1 to represent the Vanisher and the guards. And I was trying to see, would they catch?
So that was a possible encounter the whole time.
It was a possible counter the whole time. And when you had to stop so that he could go throw up in the bushes, that was what gave them the opportunity to catch. So.
Good to know. Consequences, as we talked about at the beginning.
Yes, you ended up in jail in a different country.
I got to go off subject for just a little bit. We ran a contest. There was the human rights help support to keep Roe versus Wade RPG bundle for $5. People bought it, sent me the receipt. They was entered for a chance to win a guest spot on one of our shows. Someone purchased one of these and then said, assign the entry to someone. So I rolled for it. And then the day I rolled to pick the winner who would get the one shot. This person was selected before they were made a moderator. So don't think it's just because they're a moderator. But Sir Ustad won. You won the guest spot. So you will show up in one of our shows here in the coming weeks, months possibly. So congratulations.
Yay, Ustad. No, you can't play a second edition Ranger.
No, you cannot. Second edition archers are dead. They are gone. Let them lie.
Yes, congrats, Sir Ustad. We look forward to it.
Play a bard.
Ooh.
I am fully convinced that in 5e, if you want to build the best archer in the world, you build a bard.
We've had this conversation. We need to discuss it. We need to make that a topic, like unusual builds. Ooh. We'll do that next week.
I have a feeling, and I'm going to throw this out there now as a sort of teaser. Probably, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say around Christmas, roughly. Probably by then, enough information will have come out in the campaign about my Sins of Blood character. And we're going to need an episode to discuss that build. Just because.
Cool. So next week, unusual builds. Single class or multi-class?
We're just going to discuss unusual builds.
All right.
Yeah, we can discuss both. Even though Tier doesn't run with multi-classes, and you're about multi-classes, and I'm yay about multi-classes, we can discuss both. We can all come up with a couple of unusual builds, I'm sure. I very much like building against type personally. I find those the most fun. So yeah, well,
Gee.
I got a couple. I'm sure I can pull a couple of characters out of the back.
Speaking of Loch's
One
build,
down.
this is something else you need to add to your checklist. If you allow third-party material, and if so, is it pre-approved? Is it pre-discussed? Because I pre-approved a Druid of the Forge domain before I knew exactly what a Druid of the Forge domain was.
I'd completely forgotten that was not that was not core material to D&D. I say it's not core material. It was published by a third party, but it was written by the guy who wrote the world setting that is officially D&D. So it is as close to official content as you can get without being official content. It's an Eberron subclass written by Keith Baker, the guy who created Eberron. And if you want a real tangent, I will talk about how Eberron came into existence, because that's one of my favorite D&D real world lore stories. But yeah, Keith Baker wrote it, and he published it in a book called Exploring Eberron, which is a third-party published book. And I did not remember that was the case when I wrote the character. When I read that book online, I immediately went and found the things that I found most interesting in that, where someone had taken those stat blocks from Exploring Eberron and homebrewed them into D&D Beyond, and I added them to my homebrew collection and forgot that I had done that, because I slept after that at some point. And then was like, no, this is just a thing. This is a thing you can be in D&D. And I made a character, and I submitted it to Tier. Tier was like, yeah, cool. And then and then he was like, wait, I can't find this subclass. Where is it? And I was like, well, it should be. It was written by Keith Baker. It was oh shit, that's not Wizards of the Coast. That's different. If you need me to change, I'll change. And he was like, no, it's cool.
No, I'm going to allow it. But it's pretty potent. But
it's no more. It is no more potent a subclass than Circle of the Moon, which is a Wizards of the Coast subclass.
The fact that you get adamantium skin at level 14, so you take half damage from normal damage, non-magical damage, that's pretty potent.
By 14, everything you hit us with is going to be magical. Don't you even pretend it's not going to be.
What?
Uh-huh.
That's how
Yep. Cool.
Because at that level, by the time we get to 14th level, all of the bad guys that are going to be attacking us are going to have magic, because we're all going to have magic. That's the way it works. I've played in your campaigns. I know this is true. On paper, that does seem broken. Yes, I will give you that. But in the real world, that power is useless. The really cool thing it gives you, the thing that is possibly overpowered in it, is that because you transform into a warforged version of any animal you turn into when you wild shape, you get a +2 to that animal's armor class. Now, a lot of animals have really shitty armor class, so that +2 ain't doing you a whole lot of good, because you don't get the benefit of your armor or anything when you transform, unless you have a magic item that gives you armor, like a Ring of Protection, which still grants you a +1 even if you're in animal shape, or if you have a magic tattoo, like a barrier tattoo, that gives you some armor class. Don't think I won't be looking at that later when we get to higher levels. But go ahead, Raff.
I have a tangent, and this is back to generally DMing and setting up encounters. I would throw an encounter at you where that mattered. I would throw a bunch of low levels. It comes with rewarding the player for having something cool. A bunch of villagers try to skewer you, and I can now take half that damage because I've got this.
Oh, please do not mistake what I said for me saying that Tyr will never allow me the benefit of my cool ability. I know Tyr is going to let me have that moment where I get to be like, where I just wade through a bunch of goblins or something who are all hitting me with sticks, and I'm like, fuck off. I'm an adamantine bear. Get the fuck out of my way. Tyr is going to let me have that moment. What I meant when I said don't pretend that all of the bad guys aren't going to have magic items is that every time the fight matters, every time it is a consequential fight against real baddies that are really dangerous to us, all of them are going to have magic weapons. All of them.
Well, and they should too. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
We're level 14.
Right.
At the point you're level 14, it should be a challenge at that point.
1000%, I agree with you. I'm just saying that power is relatively useless. There's going to be some cool moments where there's a lot of powers like that in subclasses where you're like, in the right scenario, this is going to be really cool. 90% of the time, not going to matter at all.
I think Keith Baker missed a very cool thing that he could have added with that, giving you adamantine skin, is the armor negates double damage on nat 20s.
Ooh.
That it really should. If you think about adamantine armor, yes. Hey, Tyr, can I argue for that?
You can try.
Hey, Tyr. I'll give you a full week where I don't put a new idea in your head that you want to roll something up for, write a new campaign for you. Whole week.
Yeah, because that means he's going to do it to someone else instead.
I have bargaining power, guys.
We'll see.
Anyways, this sounds like a conversation for next week at this point.
But yeah, go ahead.
We will discuss in our unusual builds. We will bring that up and discuss. I think, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I think it's only fair if you're wild shape and you have adamantine skin, that it should have the same properties as the armor and negate the nat 20. I think that's only fair. I mean, that's the whole point of taking that armor, is that it negates damage. It negates the crit damage, so you just take normal damage. Ustad asked, what did he miss? All right, Ustad. So we had a contest going for people to buy the TTRPG $5 project to help support keeping Road versus Wade alive. Someone purchased this and said, give my entry to someone else. I rolled a dice to see who got that entry. And in the day, I rolled out of all the entries to see who won. You won a guest spot, and this was done before you were made a moderator, because this is your first day as a moderator. You won a guest spot on one of our campaigns in the coming months. So, congratulations. And to everybody else that entered, thank you for supporting a worthy cause.
Absolutely.
All right. So, yeah, go ahead, Loch.
I was going to say, first, Ustad, you missed a whole bunch of second ed Archer jokes that we made at your expense. So it's probably best that you missed that. No, you cannot play a second edition Archer in the guest spot. If you want to play an Archer, you should play a Bard. And now I've recapped everything. But I also wanted to say that one of the things you have to look at in your planning is also, Tyr said, what source materials are you allowing? And I think, yes, my situation was weird because it was a third party and I forgot. But are you allowing the UA, the Unearthed Arcana, which is official Wizards of the Coast content, and they put it out for people to play test it, to try it out and give feedback so they can decide if they need to make changes to it before they implement it into a book. And there are some really cool UA stuff out there. I say this with the caveat that if you choose something from the UA and you play it at the beginning of a campaign, and as the campaign progresses, eventually Wizards of the Coast decides, yes, that is cool enough, we're going to put it out in a book, but they've made a couple of changes to it when they put it out in the book. You have got to be open to that discussion with your DM about whether or not you change from the UA version to the now official version and what that looks like. You might lose something you've been using a lot. The DM might decide that rather than switch you to the official version, they're going to keep you in the old version because it will maintain the continuity of the campaign more. Or maybe they will write a plot about how your powers change. But you still have to be open to that character changing some later down the road because they might publish an official version of that class or race or whatever. So if your DM is allowing Unearthed Arcana, make sure that you're both on the same page about the discussion that's going to happen if that becomes official Woods of the Coast material down the road.
Cool. Right. So, last thing I got on my thing is when we talk about, especially when we talk about resources and sources for ideas and information. As I was running around the internets, I found something really cool a couple weeks ago. I shared it with you two earlier last week. Back in the day, we go right back in the early 90s. There's a magazine called Dungeon Magazine. It was literally one-shots, modules, campaign ideas, and adventures for D&D. It has since gone out of publication. However, on a site called Internet Archive, a nonprofit site that's archiving the internet, all sorts of sources and articles, they have for you to access every single dungeon magazine to look at. So if you're looking for that magazine or something out of that, that's a wonderful resource for ideas for things that you can do. So yes, it's out there. It's archive.org. And there's all sorts of, like I said, all sorts of things in the original Dungeon magazine. It was fun to play with.
All right. We got a few minutes, guys. Any questions before we get out of here?
I was always a fan of Dragon Magazine. I think Dragon Magazine came first, and then Dungeon Magazine came later.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm just too old. I'm like, yeah, I don't remember reading a lot of Dungeon Magazine. I read a lot of Dragon Magazine.
Yeah.
And I was so hyped on Dragon Magazine. I had it on my pull list at the local comic book store every month. When it came out. It showed up in my box.
Yep, it was fun, and I like Dragon Magazine, but I think I enjoyed Dungeon more because Dungeon was very specifically, these are adventures and modules. There was none of the extra industry stuff that came in Dragon Magazine. That and the other articles.
Dragon Magazine had a lot more like, here's a class or a race or a monster. It was more supplemental stuff and less modular stuff. So I was mostly playing in the era when Dragon Magazine came out, so Dragon interested in me more because it was more stuff that related to the player side, except for the monsters. But even then, like, I got to imagine fighting that cool monster if I read the monster.
Yep. But yes.
All right.
Wyverns were first published in Dragon Magazine. I had that issue. Go ahead.
So, yeah, there's no questions from the audience. We will remind people who we are. I got it right this time. Where they can find us, and we will get the hell out of here because I have to go to work. Yay.
Right. Thanks for everyone for listening. I am Raff the Mad. I can be found on the Twitters at BLK Dragon 13,000.
Hi, gamers. I'm still Loch Clark, and happy Pride Month. And you can find me on the Book of Faces and the Twitter pages at Loch Unruly. That's Loch with an H.
Before I forget, I almost forgot, Loch. This coming season 2, campaigns, Bloodlines, Sins of Bloods, and now Cast Guidance will all have their standalone channels where you get your podcasts. Before it was Will of the Dice and Actual Play podcast had both DQ Dark and Queen and Shadowed Rose and Scions of Oblivion, as well as the one-shots. People said it was confusing to navigate. So now we will have the original Will of the Dice that will have season 2 Bloodlines. There is now Will of the Dice Sins of Blood, which will have the Sins of Blood campaign, and Will of the Dice Cast Guidance, which will have these Cast Guidance episodes. So make sure that you hunt them down, follow them. Guys, like and comment on them. You want to support us and you can't do Patreon or anything like that, that is the easiest thing you can do is like and comment on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from, or on YouTube, if you get your thing from YouTube. That helps us so much. So do the thing.
Do the thing.
Yes, there are 3 things on YouTube, especially, and this kind of goes across the board for any streaming or downloadable podcast thing. Downloads matter, and likes and comments matter, but the other thing that really matters to the algorithm is how long you watch it. So you know what? I don't care if you're actually listening. I mean, I want you to actually listen. But even if you can't like just sit down and spend the time listening, if you can put it on and let it play in the background or even turn the volume down, I don't care. Let it play all the way through. That helps us in the algorithm and you'll be doing us a favor. Rate us 5 stars, I would hope, but use your own conscience. But 5 stars really helps us out. And then comment. Even if the comment is just to say banana fish, it doesn't matter. Every comment helps. I don't know what the fuck a banana fish is or where I pulled that out of, but there you go.
It's now going to show up everywhere. Good job, Loch.
All right. So, with that being said, I am Tier the DM. I am the world's okayest DM. And you can find me on Twitters at tier_the_DM. Thank you so much for watching today. Remember, guys, times get dark and times get tough. You're not alone. Even in the darkness, there are people there to be a light. Let them. Remember, love and inclusion are the torches that light a path to a better tomorrow. Join us and be torchbearers. And until next time, if someone doesn't know, don't cast aspersions. Cast guidance.
Banana fish!
Later, guys. Banana fish!
Banana fish!